In this tutorial, we're going to go over how to make specifically news stories, documents, and calendar events public or private. So let's start with how do you make anything public or private on the site? First, we're going to go into Menu Editor. Now, there are different pages on the site, for example, the About Us page. And there's not a lot on this page, it's just some text and pictures you can create. If I want to make that page public, I can go into the Menu Editor, find the About Us page, and I can check the box Visible to Public, which it is by default here. Now, on the About Us page, there aren't individual items you can add. It's not like the document app where you can add multiple documents, or the News app where you can add multiple stories. It's just the About Us page. It's kind of similar to the Location page, where you just have a map, for example, of your community and some directions, perhaps. There aren't multiple items to add. So checking the box for those types of apps makes the entire app visible to the public, or vice versa, unchecking it makes it private. So you have to be logged in to see it. But it gets a little more complicated with apps like News, Documents, and the Calendar, because those apps have multiple items in them. Let's go into News for an example. Now, I only have one news story here, but ultimately, we will likely have multiple news stories added over time. So how do I make news stories public? Well, I have to first mark the News app in the Menu Editor as public. So I would come in here, I would scroll down to the News app and expand this box and check Visible to Public. So that makes the News app appear on the menu for the public. But it doesn't give them access to all the stories in the News app. The reason that's important is, in most cases, you'll want to have some stories be public and some stories remain private for logged in members only or registered members only. The same thing with calendar events and documents. You're going to have some documents that you want to be public, but you're going to have others that you absolutely don't want anyone to see unless they're a resident and a logged in registered member. So let's go back to the News app and we'll take a look at that. So to make this story public, because now let's say I've already made the News app public in the Menu Editor, so the public can come in and see the News app, but they won't see anything listed because all the stories are private. I can choose which stories I want to be public, edit the story, and check the box that says allow public access to the story. And there's a hint provided here if the News feature is also public. So you have to have both things. And that would make this story available to the public. But other stories that didn't have that box checked would remain private for logged in members only. Now let's say you have dozens and dozens of stories. How would you change them? Do you have to go in and edit each one? No, there is an option to do a bulk change. But I'm going to show you that in the calendar because the calendar actually has multiple items in it already. So we'll go to the Manage page. And of course, the calendar already has these preset events, which are holidays in this case. And again, I can come in here and I can edit each one and I can check the box, allow public to view this event if the calendar feature is also public. And that would make this individual item public. But let's say I want to make all these holidays here public at one time. Rather than having to go in and edit every single one and save it, you can look for the silver gear icon. And this is the same thing on the News page. At the bottom of the page, you'll see the silver gear for the Advanced Features menu. When you click that, you'll see an option, Bulk Change Event Privacy. Over in the News app, it might say Bulk Change Story Privacy. But they both work exactly the same. You can choose a category of events to update. So I could choose a single category here, or I can just say all events. And I can choose whether I want to make them all private or public. And then click Update, and that would make all events public. Same thing with News. You would choose a category of stories. You would choose whether you want them to be public or private, and click Update. It'll run through them all automatically, and in one step you can switch them all to public or private. Be sure you want to do this because there is no undo. Once you've changed them, you have to go back and individually fix the ones that you didn't mean to change. Of course, you could also do it in the case where you know that you want to change 90% of them to public, but you have 10% of them that want to remain private. If they're scattered throughout multiple categories, it's still easier to say select all, make them public, and then go back and change the few to private rather than having to do them all individually. Let's go look at Documents. Documents works a little bit differently, but the theory is the same. After you've made documents public in the menu editor, you still have to come in here and make individual documents public in order to make them visible. So I'll go to the Manage page. Now, the silver gear icon in this case does not have the same option available. It doesn't have the bulk change feature because the Documents app has this multi-select checkbox column. So you could actually individually check just a few documents that you wanted to change to public, and then this selector allows you to say make public, and when you click process selected, it will go through and change those documents to public, the ones that were selected. Or you can select all and do it that way. So because Documents has multiple settings that can be bulk changed, things like making them current or archived or private or public or deleting, because it has multiple bulk operations, it's done through this menu here. But the theory is still the same. Unless that checkbox in here, make this document viewable to the public, unless that box is checked and the menu option is also viewable to the public, the documents will be private. So you have to have that two-step process. And that's a feature. This way it allows you to have, you're not forced to have all documents or all news stories be public just because you made it public in the menu. You can now individually select things. And then, of course, the bulk operations allow you to do it more efficiently rather than having to go into every single individual item in that app to make it private or public. So I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and thank you very much for watching.